it's me, Vicky Marie. And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world that we live in. And we're talking of crazy worlds that we live in. That's what we're going to talk about. It's a crazy person, if you like. And up in the right-hand corner here, we have his two victims. We're going to talk about his victims as well, because often in cases like this, that are so dramatic with this guy and, you know, his face tattoos and just the whole sort of crazy thing of him, sometimes victims can get lost, can't they? So we've got his victims. We're going to be talking about them, talking a little bit about them, how they came to fall victim to this. They just seem to, it's awful, isn't it? Often with victims, they are literally in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, it's just like a, oh gosh, what's that word that I'm looking for? Like a catastrophe of events, you know, that leads towards something happening. And it could have been them or it could have been anybody else, because this guy, he was Wade Wilson. He was just looking that particular day, because he killed both of them on the same day. He was just looking to cause destruction, mayhem. You know, he just was, you know, anybody. It could have been anybody in his way. He was just looking for something. Drug addled, of course. You know, used that as part of his defense, but it didn't work. His mum, I think it's his foster mother, because he was brought up in foster care, said that, you know, there was good in there, etc. Maybe there is. Well, certainly there probably was at one point. And this is what always intrigues me. When do these twonks turn from being like a young, like, let's have a look. Well, let's just have a look at, no, we'll have a look, just have a look at him. When he was young. So this is Wade Wilson when he was young. When did he change? Then we've sort of got him halfway into his metamorphosis. You can see he hasn't had those awful tattoos done on his face, etc., but he's got his neck tattooed. And of course, tattoos are popular these days. You know, not everybody who gets tattooed up is an absolute twonk. But then he sort of went from that to that, and now he's that. How does that happen? I always find it really intriguing. You know, how people descend. Drugs normally have a lot to do with it, don't they? Or alcohol or some sort of substance abuse. But of course, a lot of people who use substances don't do things like that. So it's a difficult argument to make, isn't it? A very difficult argument to make. And of course, it resulted in absolute havoc for Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz. You know, their lives were ruined and their families ruined. So this is Kristine in the Father Christmas hat, Kristine Melton and Diana Ruiz. And he killed both of those women on the very same day. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay, so let's start with this guy, Wade Wilson. I just don't know where to start. I think we'll start with the victims, actually. So he had two victims. Wade Wilson. Where did all this happen? Let's have a look where it happened. Oh, Florida, of course. Florida. Yeah. So he is 30 years old. Gosh, he's only 30. He looks so much older. I suppose it's the tattoos. 30 years old, my goodness. Yeah, so he's a young man. So, you know, he's just wasted his own life, hasn't he? Let's have a look at this article. So, oh, we've got a little video here. Let's see that. Coral. So this was in Cape Coral in Florida. And after he killed these two women on the same day, he called his father several times, confessing to the crimes in gruesome detail. Aye. So he's got a nice swastika here on his face. He's a white supremacist, apparently. Yeah, so this little video was made before he was sentenced. So he was sentenced on the 27th, 2 days ago, and he's been given the death penalty. Right.
So Wade, USA Today Wine and Food Experience is coming to Las Vegas. Join us on October.
No, it's not. I don't want to know about that. I don't want to know about that. So, Wade Stephen Wilson, reportedly tied to a white supremacist gang, was found guilty this summer of charges, including first-degree murder in the slayings of Kristine Melton, 35, rest in peace, and Diane Ruiz, 43, of Cape Coral. A 12-member Lee County jury previously recommended he receive the death penalty for his crimes. Apparently, in Florida, juries recommend whether a convict should receive the death sentence, but the decision is ultimately up to a judge. Now, I want to give you a trigger warning, because when I start reading out what he did to these women, it is horrible. It is, if anyone deserved a death sentence, I don't believe in the death penalty, but if anyone deserves it, this guy does deserve it. So he's been sentenced to death twice, because he's been sentenced to a capital sentence for each murder. And the judge said the evidence showed both murders were heinous, atrocious, and cruel, and that the second murder especially was cold, calculated, and premeditated. The defendant inflicted serious physical and emotional pain to the victims while on probation for felony convictions. So he was out on probation at the time when he did this. I was watching something earlier on today about a serial killer who was being investigated for two girls who died, who were dead, but they didn't have enough evidence. And he killed another two while they were investigating him. I mean, what? I don't know. Who is convicted felon Wade Wilson? He was born apparently to underage parents and given up for adoption. He grew up in the Tallahassee area before moving to Lee County. He has voluminous tattoos on his face, including stitches, a swastika, and one that reads "Glory" in cursive. He shares his name with the alter ego of the Marvel character Deadpool. When was he convicted of murder? Wilson's weeks-long trial began on June the 1st with jury selection and took place at the Lee County Courthouse in Fort Myers. He was convicted of 6 charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder on June the 12th. Who were Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz? And this, of course, is the most important thing. According to trial testimony, Wade Wilson met Kristine, they keep calling surnames again, it drives me mental, and a friend on October the 7th, 2019. at a Fort Myers bar, and later in the evening, the trio visited Kristine's Cape Coral home. After Kristine's friend left, Wilson strangled her to death as she slept, stole her car, and then he drove off to meet his I think she was his ex-girlfriend. But it says here his girlfriend, but I thought I read it was his ex-girlfriend, but maybe. So he went off to meet his girlfriend after he'd strangled this poor woman to death in her sleep. Stole her car and went off to pick up his girlfriend. Now, she must have just had an idea, just from his demeanor or whatever, that something was strange. And she wouldn't get into his car. So he assaulted her, but she managed to get away. She was lucky. She was very lucky. So this is a picture of Kristine Melton displayed for the jury during his murder trial. I notice he's not looking at it. Not long after he drove back to Cape Coral, Wilson saw this poor Diane Ruiz. She was just walking to work along the street. He pretended to ask her for directions. He lured her into his car, and then he attempted to strangle her. He then drove to an empty lot and attacked. And when she tried to run away, Wilson attacked her, strangled her, then pushed her out of the car and ran over her between 10 and 20 times. Her body was found in a field 3 days later as vultures circled overhead. And after the murders, he called his father, Stephen Testaseca, this is his foster father, several times, and he said he had killed the woman. Testaseca contacted the police and Wilson was arrested on the 8th of October 2019. So he was arrested 5 years ago. He was excited, Testaseca testified in court, adding that Wilson said he wanted to make her look like spaghetti. And this is a photo of Diane Ruiz displayed during his trial. I wonder what he thought does he have any feelings for these women that he murdered on that day? And why did he murder 2 women in one day? I know we always try to look for reasons and we can never think of them. Anyway, he was convicted of first-degree murder, 2 counts, grand theft, battery, burglary, petty theft. And he also faces charges in unrelated crimes, including attempted escape from jail and drug charges. So according to court documents, he is connected to a white supremacy prison gang. This prison gang was founded in the late 80s in the Florida prison system, according to the Anti-Defamation League, and is the largest in the state. Hi, Annie. He now joins 279 people, including 2 women who are on Florida's death row. The most recent execution in the Sunshine State doesn't sound much like a sunshine state, does it? God, that's the right tongue twister. Took place in October when the state executed Michael Zack for a woman's 1996 slaying. And the next execution is on Thursday. So that was yesterday. Today, there was an execution due today. 57-year-old Lauren Cole by lethal injection for the 1994 murder of an 18-year-old college student and the RAPE of the victim's sister during a camping trip at Ocala National Forest in north central Florida. So, a Marion County jury convicted Cole of killing John Edwards, a freshman at Florida State University, and sexually assaulting Edward's 21-year-old sister. And if he is put to death, it will mark the 7th time that Florida executed a man since August the 8th. He will become the first in May 2019. Cole will also become the first inmate executed in Florida this year, and the 13th in the nation if his lethal injection takes place. Now, I think they can choose. God, that keeps jumping around. It's getting on my nerves. I think they can choose whether to have lethal injection or the electric chair, will it be? Maybe one of you will know in the chat, but... So, yeah. Not a nice guy. So this, I'm going to show you a video now, which was, where's it gone? So this is him entering into a Florida business, bloody and shirtless, and confessing to murder. This is the Law and Crime Network. Let me show you this. So here he is on the CCTV. He's just murdered those 2 women. Let me just fast forward it a bit now. So this is the person I think he confessed to. Oh, sorry, the business, the place that he went into. I mean, look at him. And you know, when he's got that blue suit on and that yellow tie, looks even more like the Joker. That Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix, it just freaked me out completely. I found it really, a lot of people, you know, it's funny, isn't it? A lot of people didn't like it or thought it was rubbish or whatever. I just found it terrifying, to be honest. And now when he's got this blue suit on and this yellow tie and black shirt, he looks even more like the Joker. All he needs is the hat on the top of his head. Just needs a hat and oh dear, he's a very strange guy.
And
I just really, the most thing that I wanted to show you was this, just him turning up, you know, with his no shirt on, covered in blood. What on earth possessed him on that day to sort of murder those poor 2 women? You know, he didn't even know them. You know, he had no grudge against them, and he wasn't, you know, he'd not murdered any, well, as far as we know, I know he'd been in trouble with the police and everything, but as far as we know, he hadn't killed anyone before. So to just suddenly murder not only 1 woman, but 2 women, that, you know, that he didn't even have any personal grudge against, they didn't know them, they'd never done anything to him. It's just like a complete mystery, isn't it, really? Why somebody would do that. Now, I want to show you this now, where he's talking about...
This man, Wade Wilson, is accused of brutally murdering 2 Cape Coral women, Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz. He's been in jail since 2019, awaiting trial. And recently, he sent us dozens of letters with some wild accusations. Tonight, for the first time ever, and from jail, he's talking, and it's with NBC2 anchor Kyla Gaylor.
These are all the letters Wade Wilson has written to NBC2 over the last 6 months. He really wanted to talk with us. I know what you're thinking. Why would we listen to a man accused of some pretty heinous crimes? A man with a long rap sheet at that. Well, we found out he may be involved in even more than we once realized. Wade Wilson had a lot to say in his first and only on-camera interview since he was indicted on murder charges more than 3 years ago. And I had a lot of questions. Did you kill Kristine Melton and Diane Ruiz?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No surprise there, considering he pleaded not guilty. He seemed confident, even smug at times while sporting his orange.
Not guilty? How? What? I didn't realise that he pled not guilty. Oh my God! You know, these people are just. You know, maybe he wouldn't have got the death penalty if he would have pled guilty. You know, and saved a trial or saved all the thing. But to plead not guilty, he was just asking for the death penalty, wasn't he? You know, they always think they're cleverer, don't they? You know, and they're obviously not clever. You could just look at him. Well, you know, wouldn't have got. Well, he confessed. He confessed to his foster parent. How can he then go and say not guilty? He was probably saying mental health issues, or you know, that's the thing now, isn't it? It's always mental health issues, drug problems, alcohol problems. You know, all these excuses for just being a real horrible person.
Jumpsuit and new face tattoos.
I'm not a monster. Yeah, I'm not a saint either by any means. I've made bad decisions in the past, of course.
While Wilson is accused of taking 2 lives, he claims to have tipped off investigators about a plot to kill another woman while behind bars. According to an arrest report late last year, Tristan Gendron asked Wilson to help kill the mother of his child, so his domestic abuse charges would be dropped. Wilson couldn't do it himself. He was in jail. But Gendron asked if his crew on the outside could.
He just thought that I was the person to ask for that.
This is a copy of the note Gendron wrote Wilson in jail with details of the hit job. It came with a $200,000 payout. Gendron said the money was in a safe at Gendron's funeral and cremation services in Fort Myers.
People would accept $10,000, $200,000, surely, but I'm not that type of person.
Instead, he reported it to the state attorney's office and became a sworn witness.
I don't know her personally whatsoever from a can of paint, but it doesn't matter. She's a person.
Investigators later found out there was a safe at the funeral home.
Oh my God. So he's trying to make out he's some sort of. So this guy in the prison has asked him to murder the mother of his child so he doesn't have any custody issues and he doesn't have to pay alimony. And he's making himself out to be this fabulous person who, you know, oh no, I wouldn't do that because she's a person and blah, blah, blah. He's already murdered 2 women. Goodness me. And the guy who's asked him to murder his ex-partner, this is his funeral home. Do you see what I'm saying about the internet being a weird place? You know, you've always got to be careful. You just don't know.
Home with cash inside, and those security codes in the note were accurate. The funeral director said the murder for hire charges are BS. As you might imagine, anyone tied to Wilson isn't keen on talking. The state attorney's office can't. We don't know all the evidence it has, but it's enough for prosecutors to go for the death penalty.
It doesn't worry me. It worries me only because of the level of corruption around here in Fort Myers that I was involved with.
We learned some of that evidence may include a confession, which Wilson says he was forced to make after he was charged.
When coming to jail, I knew that I had to get something out there as far as a confession because I was told to do that otherwise.
So they always blame it on corruption as well, don't they? They always turn on the police and say it's corruption. I bet he's a Trump supporter, another one. Yeah, when you get found guilty of something, or when it's corruption, it's it's all wrong. It's the election was stolen, or it's like that's everybody's stock answer to everything. Police corruption, not me, what I've done. No. It's the police. The corruption in the police.
My parents were going to be harmed. My children were going to be harmed.
Wilson's own father spoke on the record. He told investigators Wilson called him after spending the night with Kristine Melton, asking for help. She was a server at a Cape Coral bar. Wilson's father said his son admitted to strangling Melton while she was sleeping and then rolled her up in a carpet.
Why do these, don't these well, I don't know if you'd call this mainstream media or not, but don't they ever think of why do they call them by their surnames? Why is it just me that it always seems so offensive? You know, this girl, she's met I mean, I don't know what she saw in him, but, you know, some women like bad boys, I suppose, but I think she bit off a bit more than she could chew with him. But she's met him and, you know, she's probably just, I don't know, he's ended up going back to her house and he strangled her in the middle of the night and rolled her up in a carpet. But he's saying it's everybody else's fault again, isn't it? It's the police corruption. It's not that he really did it.
Wilson admits he met Melton at a bar the night before she was found dead and slept at her house, but claims she was alive when he left in her car. He told his dad he then picked up a lady, asked for directions, then choked her.
Yeah, she was still alive, but he left in her car. So he stole her car as well. So that poor woman, not only, you know, he murdered her and then he stole her car. Then he tried to pick up his girlfriend. She won't get in the car. I reckon his girlfriend probably must have been aware of his moods and things like that. Probably could see he was wired or whatever. I don't know. But I tell you, that's the best decision she ever made in her life, was not getting in the car with him, because he then went and killed the other woman, poor Diane.
And ran her over so many times he made her look like spaghetti.
I was forced. That wasn't a call that I willingly wanted to make.
Investigators say that other woman was mother of two, Diane Ruiz.
But as far as Diane Ruiz, I never ran across her, never seen her, and there's nothing that will say otherwise than that.
Wilson only briefly mentions Ruiz and Melton in his letters, never giving these women the dignity of saying their names, just that he was set up. He talks more often about a high-profile case of another Cape Coral woman, Lauren DeMolo, who hasn't been seen since June of 2020. Wilson admits he is trying to save his life, but it will be up to a jury to figure out fact.
What, has he done another one then? I'm just going to look her up. Lauren DeMolo. Oh, she's been missing for 4 years. No arrests, no big leads, and no clues about what exactly happened to her in 4 years. So why did he bring her up? Has he been responsible for her death? Let's just have a look at this video.
Today marks 4 years since Lauren DeMolo disappeared from her Cape Coral home. This gas station security footage shows her handing in an application on June 18th of 2020. DeMolo was last seen at her home on Coronado Parkway in Cape Coral.
Yeah, her purse was found at Four Freedoms Park 2 days after her disappearance, but her cell phone was still at her apartment. Her parents are still frustrated and heartbroken that they don't know where their daughter is or exactly what happened to her. Wink News reporter Liz Byro joins us now live in studio. So Liz, where does this case stand right now?
Yeah, Russ, Cape Coral police say this case is still very active. But when I talked to her dad, he fears the case of his missing daughter has gone cold. When Paul DeMolo looks at these pictures of his girls, he wishes he had a time machine. This one's his favorite. His little Lauren and Cassie, born 13 months apart.
See, Lauren could do whatever she wanted and say whatever she wanted to Cassie. But anybody else did. Lauren be the first one there.
Lauren was older, always protecting Cassie. Paul watched his kids grow to have kids of their own. But in his mind, Lauren hasn't changed in 4 years. This is how he remembers her. Lauren took this photo the last day her dad saw her. The last time he spoke to her was a phone call on June 18th, 2020.
Something I always do, because I'm afraid that I'll forget, is replay that phone call, the last few phone calls I got from her. so I don't forget what her voice sounds like.
Lauren DeMolo was reported missing the next day, reportedly last seen by her boyfriend. Her phone was in her Cape Coral apartment. Her purse was found at the nearby Four Freedoms Park.
So her phone was still in her apartment. She was last seen by her boyfriend. So, of course, her boyfriend's going to be the prime suspect. But it's funny that this guy, you know, this Deadpool guy, that why is he bringing up her case? You know, so does that mean that maybe he's a bit of a suspect, or is it likely to be her boyfriend, or is it someone completely different? Just seems strange he's bringing it up.
Everything since that day doesn't add up to Paul.
Without a doubt, frustrated because I don't know what it's going to take, or I, to be honest with you, I don't think there will ever be any arrests made. Too far gone now.
But he remembers her like this and finds peace in the promise he'll see her again on the other side. While he wishes law enforcement had more answers, he and Lauren's sister Cassie are forever grateful for all those who kept Lauren's name alive and never gave up the search.
I wish that Lauren could see, like, even if she didn't always feel loved and welcomed and accepted or different from this world, that there are so many people here still fighting for her that don't even know her.
Countless flyers and searches have been organized for the single mom, a sister, a daughter, and a friend. Lauren DeMolo and Lauren's dad told me he can picture Lauren looking down and saying, man, all of this for me. And of course, if you know anything, it's never too late to come forward.
That family deserves answers, no doubt about it. Liz, thank you.
Right, okay, so there you go. So did he have something to do with that? Or, yeah, interesting. Anyway, let's go back to what we were watching. I feel like I want to do a video about that lady now, Laura, if she's been missing 4 years. Where is she?
From Fiction. Are you just trying to discredit the people who are testifying against you at trial?
Absolutely not. No, I'm just trying to tell the truth.
Wilson and I covered a number of topics, more than we had time to show you and more than we could legally air. Overall, it really seemed like he is trying to bring these things up to save his own skin. Wilson's attorney filed a motion earlier this month to remove himself as counsel due to a conflict of interest. He said their relationship was so ruptured they couldn't move forward. I reached out to that attorney a number of times, but I never heard back. Wilson claims he was part of an organized crime ring. And coming up at 11, we'll tell you how that conspiracy also involved Lauren DeMolo, a local spa, and a former sheriff.
I know her family really, really wants to know what happened to her.
And I'll have more answers from Cape Coral Police, too, because I talked to them about this case as well.
Right, well, I'll definitely be looking out to do a video about Lauren. Gosh. Definitely. Lauren DeMolo. I'm just writing it down so I remember it. There you go. Another one. Oh God, there's so many missing people, isn't it? Just, you don't realize, do you, once you start looking into these things? Anyway, so the good news is, or depending on how you look at it, as I say, I don't believe in the death penalty, but, you know, then when you hear like what he did to these women, innocent women, one just walking to, one just silly enough to take him home, not realizing just, you know, what she was dealing with. The other one just walking to work and him asking her for directions and luring her into his car and then murdering her. You just think, well, even though I don't believe in the death penalty, I can't say I'll be losing any sleep over him getting the death penalty. Of course, it'll take years before he actually comes to, you know, being put to death. It might get commuted by then. But let's just have a look at, particularly at the victims, because as I say, he gets a lot of attention. Sometimes victims don't get enough attention, but this is the Sun newspaper. Let's have a look at this video.
Convicted Florida killer Wade Wilson, who shares the same name as Marvel fan favorite Deadpool, was found guilty in June for the murders of two women in 2019, 35-year-old Kristine Melton and 43-year-old Diane Ruiz. According to police and court documents, Kristine Melton was found dead in her home, her body strangled by Wilson the morning after they met at a bar. She was reportedly strangled in her sleep after Wilson woke up next to her. He then wrapped up her body and stole her car. Later that very same day, Wade Wilson spotted Diane Ruiz walking down the street to a nearby school before reportedly luring her into the car he stole from Kristine, asking her for directions to a local school. After the mother of two tried to exit the vehicle, Wade attacked her, strangling her nearly to death before throwing her out the car. But after realizing she was still alive, Wade started running over her back and forth up to 20 times.
Oh.
Wilson's own father, Stephen Tesaseka, took the stand against his own son during the trial and detailed how Wade mercilessly bragged about committing the murders, telling the jury that Wade told him he ran her over until her insides looked like spaghetti. Now, last week, 10 of the 12 jurors on the case have recommended the death penalty for Wilson. In Florida, just 8 jury votes are needed to recommend the death penalty. But now Wilson's fate lies in the judge's hands, who can sentence him to literally either life in prison or death. The assistant state attorney also called the jury's recommendation justified, given the horrific nature of the case. The 30-year-old killer first went viral on social media for his name and large swath of face tattoos, having at least 2 different visible swastika tattoos on his head and face. Wade's defense attorney stated that the convicted killer has a diseased mind and a drug addiction, though the court found that not to be a viable excuse for double murder. Wade's ex-girlfriend, Kelly Matthews, also spoke out about the kind of person that he is and what her experience dating the...
So that's his ex-girlfriend. She's the one who had the lucky escape, didn't get into his car. She looks like she might have some drug issues, to be honest, or but maybe not. Maybe I'm being unfair. But yeah, she certainly had a lucky escape. Definitely. Good God.
Now convicted killer was like for 4 months. In January 2019, about 9 months before the murders took place, Wilson was arrested on charges of grand theft and dealing stolen property after stealing and attempting to sell his then-girlfriend's 2 laptops, PlayStation, and even her gun, despite being a convicted felon. Just 1 month later, after taking him back, Kelly describes being kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and almost killed by Wade on her birthday. Kelly, who is now in therapy due to the incident, says she filed a police report and had plenty of photos of her bruised and bloody face. But since there were no other witnesses, police declined to pursue charges, calling the situation hearsay and said that there is no probable cause. She believes the system completely failed her, saying that if police at the time would have taken her claims seriously and made an arrest, maybe the 2 other victims would still be alive today. Wilson's fate and sentencing is scheduled to be decided on July 23rd. For more updates on this story, check out the US Sun at the-sun.com.
Have you noticed that the Sun, they're doing a lot of these sort of videos now? They're going more in the sort of social media way of doing like short videos, almost like YouTube videos, aren't they? What they're doing with them when they're presenting their news these days, and it works much better. It does work much better. Gosh, so there you go. That's Diane Ruiz. A beloved engaged mother of 2 who was cruelly murdered by Wade. 2 photos there. Let's see what the other one is. Oh, that's the other lady. And Kristine Melton, the other girl, was raised in Illinois. She and a friend moved to Cape Coral, where she worked as a waitress. Her neighbors described her as sweet and friendly. She was happy-go-lucky, help anybody, a very nice person, Debbie McCabe said. And apparently she worked as a server and bartender at the Moose Lodge in Cape Coral, and that's where she met him. So co-workers and customers of the engaged mother of 2, this is Diane now they're talking about, I think, shared kind words about Diane following her brutal murder. She didn't have a bad bone in her body. She did not deserve to end up over there like that, Ernie Carroll said. So, Kristine's first cousin and best friend, Samantha Katimer, testified throughout tears. She said that Christina enjoyed dressing up and that Halloween was one of her favourite holidays. He threw her away like garbage, Katimer said of Wilson. And she added that she was precious, not just to me, but to everyone who knew her. God, you're going into the surnames again. Anyway, she added that she said that Christina had a quick wit and that people felt safe and understood around her. Per the publication, she was a relief just to sit next to her. And she also shared that Christina was her child's godmother, which was her greatest honour. Kristine will never experience motherhood, a role she was born to play. She added that Melton enjoyed travelling, loved to get to know the world, and said that she lived less than a block away from her mother, who relocated to Maryland with one of Melton's other siblings after being horrified by the murder. And apparently Christina's mother was absent during the trial. Losing Kristine is like losing your son. I would not wish it on my worst enemy, Katimer said. She also said that Christina's cat sat by her crumbled body as the police arrived. Oh dear, look at her, I know you can, she said while looking at Wilson, and jurors saw the photos on the screen. They reported that Diane Ruiz was killed only days before she was supposed to see her then freshman son, Zane Romero, debut in his high school band program. I never got to see her in the crowd, her son said. And she was his only living parent before her murder. And he said that his engaged mother would have been married within months. She was close to getting everything she wanted. And filled with emotion, he named the accomplishments that Diane had missed due to her murder, including seeing him complete 3 years of marching band, get accepted into the colleges he applied for, and win awards for his photography. Bless. My mum will never get to see me married, never get to see me get married, he said. And he also said he was taken to the intensive care unit during his freshman year of college after he was involved in a severe car accident. I wasn't able to call my mum, he said. Oh. He looked over a series of photos he took of and with Diane, and grew emotional when he pointed at a specific picture that Diane took of him. He said it was the only time he let his mother photograph him, and he did it as a Mother's Day gift. Oh dear me. I don't think I'm going to read this about him. I don't think I want to talk about him anymore. So these are his poor victims. Let's have their picture up. All right. Sorry, I just want to put the picture of these girls up. Yeah, see, that's it, Chumba. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat now. You've got to be very careful. Got to be very careful on the internet. You don't know who's watching. Could be someone who lives around the corner from you. Could be someone who's annoyed at something, maybe annoyed at something you've said on chat, or annoyed that you're watching my channel or whatever. You just don't know. So that's why I certainly don't want to be responsible for anything happening to anybody. So don't think we'll have any, and as somebody said earlier, I think you need to maybe change where you're meeting, because just in case, you just never know. You never know. Got to be very, very careful. You know, people are strange, as we know. And that's it. Sometimes things you say and got to be, you honestly, that's one thing I've realised. The internet's a crazy place. You know, it really is. And you just don't know some strange people out there, I'm afraid. There's some lovely people as well, but there's some strange people out there. So you've got to be careful. You've got to take your own personal safety very seriously. And, you know, I certainly, that's why I've deleted the comments, because, you know, I don't want the responsibility either. And I don't want anything to happen to anybody, of course. So, yeah, I mean, it's awful, isn't it, really? And I think sometimes, even in members, you know, you think, oh, you still never know. You just don't know. You don't know. You don't know, because there's people who watch who are members that, you know, we don't know, who don't go in the chat or whatever. So, yeah. It's awful, really, when you think about that. You have to be so careful, but you do. And as I say, we don't want to end up with it being a case that I'll be discussing on here. It's safest to assume we're all strange, including me. Do you know, it's like, yeah, jump. Oh, dear me. It is, you know, yeah, now I'm wondering what I can say. I'm like, oh, what can I say? What can I say? Honestly, people always surprise you. That's one thing as well. People surprise you, you know, in life, don't they? So really, at the end of the day, when you're on the internet, when you're on YouTube, it's just a massive sort of representation of normal life. You know, so think about the people you meet in normal life. You meet nice people. You meet horrible people. Sometimes you meet people that start off being horrible, but then it turns out they're quite nice. And vice versa. Sometimes you meet people that you think are nice, and then it turns out that actually they're not. I think the internet is just like a bigger version, you know, where you get to meet, not, you know, normally you'd only, before the internet, we'd only really get to meet people in our own area, wouldn't we? You know, people we work with, or, you know, you'd meet people, friends of friends and stuff, but only in your own little environment. You might meet people when you go on holiday and stuff like that. Maybe that's the only time that you would meet anyone who was not from your area. Then, of course, now the internet, my God, you know, you're talking to people from all over the world. You know, and although you think that they're all over the world, and, you know, you might be thinking, well, it's even, I suppose, you know, you think, oh, they're miles away or whatever, but you don't know. They might be on a plane right now on the way to Glasgow. So, just, honestly, nothing would surprise me, not after I've been doing true crime. The problem with doing these cases on true crime is, in the end, you just think, oh my God, you can't trust anyone, because, you know, they're just, I mean, like that guy, he's just gone off, he's met a girl, poor girl, working at a bloody, just working at a restaurant, and, you know, for some reason she was taken by him. He's quite a handsome guy if you look beyond the tattoos and whatever. I don't know if he had those, you know, we're going back quite a long time. I don't know if he had those like stitches on his face and what have you then, or if he would just had the neck tattoos. But some people like tattoos. You know, tattoos are popular. Loads of people have got tattoos now. So she's obviously got chatting to him. It was her and a friend that went back to her house. There was 3 of them. So she's obviously been charmed by him in some way. I mean, you know, she didn't know that he was a nutcase. You know, lots of people have one night stands and whatever. It's not, you know, she's a young single girl. Why shouldn't she do that if she wants to? But of course, she didn't realise what she was inviting back into her home. And then obviously a friend must have gone home. He's ended up staying overnight. And then When he's woke up, he's just decided he wants to strangle her and steal her car. And then gone off, tried to get his girlfriend in the car, and then she's, luckily for her, didn't get in the car, and he's gone off and killed some other poor woman who was literally just walking to work. So that's just one case, but I've read cases where people have travelled miles, to just to go and murder somebody, literally. And people that there was one case don't know if you've ever heard about this case, and it was a young couple, very young couple, and they met a guy, they were British, and they met, I can't remember their names, again, I'd have to look it up and research it to do a video on it or whatever, but they met this German lad playing games, online. He was in Germany, they were in the UK, and got quite friendly with him. And one day he just turned up at their house. The doorbell went, they answered the door, and it was this guy, and he'd fallen in love with the woman, with the girl, but online as an avatar, because it was games that they were playing online where they were like avatars. He'd fallen in love with this girl and become obsessed by her, even though he knew she had a partner. And he ended up murdering the boyfriend. She came home from work one day and her boyfriend's dead. And this guy has flown back to Germany. So this is what I mean. In fact, I'll see if I can, I wonder if I can find that up here. I can't remember their names. Yeah, German game fanatic flew to the UK to stab his rival. Let's have a look at this article. Let's have a look. That's the problem. Once you start getting into true crime, I mean, I've seen that many bloody videos about true crime, and the truth is stranger than fiction. You couldn't make this shit up. So here he is, German web game fanatic who flew to the UK to stab his... Oh, God, all these bloody adverts. Come on, when you're trying to read an article. I'm just trying to read the article, for God's sake. He murdered a British gamer after becoming obsessed with his girlfriend. He was jailed for life. David Heiss stabbed Matthew Pike 86 times after vowing to a fellow online gamer that he would erase his victim. A court heard that Mr. Pike, who ran an online strategic game playing site with his girlfriend Joanna Whitten, 21, he called Wars Central, had tried to write his killer's name in his own blood as the attack unfolded at the couple's flat. Yeah, that's part of it. Well, that's part of how they caught him, because Mr. Pike, he actually tried to write his name. What's his first name? Matthew. So police investigating the killing discovered Mr. Pike, 20, or Matthew, had scrawled DAV, the first 3 letters of his killer's Christian name, on the side of a computer monitor, sentencing him to serve a minimum of 18 years. 18 years? What? This guy's only young. How is 18 years a fair sentence? He'll only be about 40 when he gets out. Anyway, Mr. Justice Keith said Heiss was driven by his obsession with Joanna and had been unable to cope with rejection. So, yeah, he turned up at their house And they let him stay for a while, you know, being nice people. And then, of course, he got a bit too fruity with Joanna, so she, you know, turned him down, and he couldn't cope with it. And the police said the case highlighted the dangers of the World Wide Web. God, now I bet you're glad I deleted those messages now, as Heiss tracked the couple down, largely using information they had made available online. Heiss, who had a penchant for redheads like Miss Whitten, had been one of around 40 highly active members of War Central and regularly messaged the student through the site and the MSN Messenger service. Born to a Bolivian mother and a German father who split up when he was just 6 years old, Heiss was raised by his grandmother, who he still lived with at the time of the murder. With no friends outside his cyber life, he spent up to 8 hours a day on his computer. So this is Matthew, and this is his girlfriend Joanna. And poor Matthew was stabbed 86 times by this guy. So he'd confessed. So he's only 21, this murderer. So, you know, he's only going to be 39, possibly, when he gets out. It just doesn't seem fair for Matthew, does it? So apparently he confessed to the environmental science undergraduate that he had a crush on her, even though they had never met outside the internet. 2 months later, the trainee sales representative, who used the online alias Eagle the Lightning, declared his love for her in an email. When Miss Whitten continued to reject him, he made 2 uninvited trips to their flat in Nottingham to see her. By now, Heiss had sent one site member called Nebula a list of people who needed to be erased, which was headed by Mr. Pike, known online as Shade. See, this is it. Sometimes the internet and real life cross over. Probably when he saw, you know, that whoever he sent that to, or whoever he sent that that list of people that had to be erased to, they probably thought it was just to do with the game. You know, they didn't think he was really going to erase them. You know, you just connect. You just got to be so careful. You shouldn't say where you come from, really, or anything, or only a vague thing. And also, what you were saying, Chumba, about other people on other chats. I mean, you know, if I'm ever watching somebody else's videos, you know, I see people. You know, I don't think I've ever commented in anybody's. I do watch other YouTubers. I've got my favourites like that chapter, etc. I very rarely make a comment because, you know, I don't know. I rarely comment in chat, in any chat except mine, but you know, sometimes I go on watching other YouTubers and I see my chatters in there, but I never comment. I never say anything. You just got to be so careful. So Miss Whitten, who called herself Jojo online, Jojo. If you're watching this, as we've got a Jojo, do you know what I mean? It's all getting a bit surreal now. He told the Nebula, seriously, the whole thing will end up in at least one of us 3 dying. So he's being actually open on this website. He's saying he's going to kill somebody, but nobody would believe it. Anyway, the court heard it was Heiss's 3rd and final unscheduled visit to Nottingham last September. It wasn't last September, this is when this was written, which was to culminate in Mr. Pike's brutal and savage killing. The jury heard how Heiss armed with a knife he brought with him from Germany. God, how did he get it on the plane? How did he get a knife on the plane? Good God. Oh, well, I suppose you're not allowed to take knives, are you? Even in your luggage, are you? I had a bloody bottle opener taken off me once on a plane, a bloody corkscrew taken off me. And he managed to get over with a knife. Maybe he didn't fly, I don't know. But I tell you, even if you go on a train, well, in Spain anyway, you have to go through security. I had a pair of scissors taken off of me when I came back from Madrid. Anyway, he waited for Miss Whitten to leave for work before knocking on the door and then attacking her boyfriend. I know, Maggie, it was a brilliant corkscrew that I'd bought in Tesco or somewhere. It was a brilliant one, and they took the bloody corkscrew off me, said I couldn't take it, but I don't think it was in hand luggage. Maybe it was hand luggage. Maybe I had it in hand luggage, can't remember, but I was gutted. I've had a few things taken off me. Hey, Tia, come here. Here. Oh, she's having a barking competition with another dog. Hey! I think they're having a chat. It's not the Chihuahua this time. She's having a chat with a dog up the road. So he told the court he had only meant to give Matthew a beating, but he used the knife in self-defense. Oh, yeah. Of course he did. Oh, my God. So, yeah, he took the knife along, but he wasn't going to use it. He wasn't going to use it. It was self-defense. Crikey. Anyway, Heiss flew straight back to Germany. Oh, he was on the plane, arriving just 16 hours after he had left. Police found his blood-stained clothes in a suitcase under his bed, along with a suicide note he had penned, as if it was written by Matthew. God. Matthew, who had dropped out of his university physics foundation course, was found, is that relevant? Was found slumped in the flat by Miss Whitten when she returned from work. And they met online when they were both members of another online forum that had preceded War Central. They became an item and they both enrolled on courses at Nottingham Trent University. And they, along with Heiss, would spend up to 8 hours a day on War Central, where users exchanged tips and strategies for the Nintendo game Advance Wars. And the jury took just 2.5 hours to convict Heiss from Limburg near Frankfurt of murder. Heiss, who earned the equivalent of 5 A levels but was unable to afford a university place, slumped in his chair as the verdict was returned. And Mr. Justice Keith told him, "The fact that your motive was so bizarre does not make your killing of Matthew any less serious. I have no doubt that you decided Matthew had to die. The substantial degree of planning and premeditation is a significant factor." So here we go. Here's a lesson for all of us. Outside court, Detective Chief Inspector Tony Hayden said, "We should all consider the amount of personal information we share on systems like MSN and internet forums. Heiss used the internet to harass and stalk Joanna and Matthew. He learned where they lived and other information that enabled him to carry out his plans. The Nottinghamshire police detective said it had been the most harrowing case of his career." So there you go. That's a lesson that we need to learn. What? What's this? Yeah, she's definitely having a chat. David, they used to sell Swiss Army knives pre 9/11. God. Well, no, my brother, one of my brothers, he worked in Saudi. He went off to work in Saudi, and don't ask me why, but he took a great big bloody knife with him. But he had to bring it back. He brought it back and gave it to us. We'd gone to the airport to see him off. It was like one of them Bowie knives. When I think about it now, it's funny, when you're young, you don't question anything, but I have no idea why he took that knife with him. You know, absolutely no idea. But anyway, he did. But he is a bit like he packs the kitchen sink when he goes anywhere. But he went through security. He was going to Kuwait or somewhere, I don't know, somewhere in that part of the world. I was only about 18 at the time, so I didn't really register what was really going on. But yeah, and he brought it back. As he went through security, they took it off him, or they said he couldn't go. They didn't take it off him, said he couldn't take it through. So he brought it back and gave it us, and we had to take it home for him, this great big knife. Anyway, yeah, I still don't know. Hey, that was it. Oh God, right, she's going to get on my nerves now, barking. Okay, anyway, so we've learned about what's his name, Wade. Can't remember his first name, but it doesn't matter. We've learned about him tonight. We've learned why you shouldn't give out any personal details over open chat. Bad girls. Yeah, we've learned why, because that's not the only case I've read about. That's just one that sticks in my mind. But there's lots of others. You wouldn't think someone would go to all that trouble, to go from Germany to Britain just to kill someone. But he did. And there's another one that I must look up. Someone who went all the way, I think it was Australia, to Britain and killed a young girl. So, you've always got to be careful. Yeah, it won't be much fun if somebody turns up with a Bowie things. And I will see you really soon in the next video. And until then, as always, may your gods go with you.